This episode is proudly sponsored by HASA, the trusted choice for liquid chlorine. It's better because it offers the highest purity, works instantly, and contains no added CYA. By the bottom feeder, professional-grade battery-powered swimming pool vacuum system, it sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off the bottom feeder with code DVB100. Skimmer, trusted by over 30,000 pool service professionals across North America. Skimmer software helps you save time, grow revenue, and boost your 5-star reviews. Whether you're just starting out or expanding your team, Skimmer's easy-to-use tools and expert support have you covered. Upgrade your business in 2025 with Skimmer. Try Skimmer for 30 days for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. We just had a major windstorm in Southern California, which of course caused a lot of large fires, and a lot of homes were lost, unfortunately, in this particular wind incident. I'm going to go over some cleanup tips when you are dealing with heavy wind and, of course, with fire and ash as well, which is something that we deal with a lot here in Southern California. Join my coaching program and take your pool service to the next level. Connect with other pool pros in your area, gain valuable knowledge, and transform your business with personalized one-on-one advice from me. With over 36 years of experience, I'm here to help you succeed like never before. Learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Of course, my thoughts and prayers and real condolence goes out to those who have lost their homes and businesses during these recent fires in the Los Angeles area. I'm very familiar with Altadena. I've been there many times. I have service accounts in the surrounding areas, so I know exactly the streets that have burned, all the homes and businesses. I've driven past those many times. And I've also been to Pacific Palisades. I've been to the Getty Villa out there. Beautiful area, and I know that there's going to be a lot of support from LA County to rebuild and give people back what they've lost. Although I'm about 30 miles from the epicenter in Altadena, there is still a lot of side effects. The windstorm hit me pretty well in my service area, as well as other pool pros in Southern California. And in no way am I going to say that cleaning a pool and making the pool blue again in any way is going to minimize the damage created by these devastating fires. But there is the aspect of cleaning up after the fact, and there are a lot of surrounding areas that were affected by the winds and not quite directly by the fire. So in my area, the windstorm came through pretty brutally. I believe the gusts were probably around 50 miles an hour. They weren't quite as severe as the other areas where they had gusts of 80 miles an hour. So the area got pretty winded. And of course, the ash from a previous fire earlier in the year, I believe it was in October last year, is still falling in my area. And whenever the wind blows, that ash is falling. And the ash from these new fires is, of course, falling in the area. So the first thing you need to realize is that no matter what you do after the first week after the storm, there's probably going to be more wind. Usually another wind event follows the wind event that we deal with primarily. And then you're going to have the ash falling for months in some cases whenever the wind shifts. And that's something to deal with kind of separately from the wind cleanup or the leaf debris cleanup. So let me go through the first things you need to do. Number one, the customer must be reasonable. How can you make the customer reasonable or have reasonable expectations? Well, the best way to do this is to have a service agreement where you go over what they should expect you to do during a wind event and what you are going to do during a wind event, and not what they think you're going to do during a wind event. There's a big difference between expectations, what the contract says. It's not technically a contract, it's just a service agreement, and what they want you to do. And you're going to run into a lot of problems when you are not meeting those unrealistic expectations by the customer. Now, if you do want a copy of my service agreement, it's a one-page Word format. You can edit it and change it and do whatever you want with it. But it has a basic skeleton you can use. And there is a section in there about the wind cleanup. And I do state that it may take up to 3 weeks to get the pool back in shape. And I mentioned earlier, in that time period, there may be another windstorm, regrettably, to add more debris to the pool. But there is just no way humanly possible for you to maintain your route if you have a full week route and spend an hour at each pool. If you just do it mathematically, in my area, currently during the wind season, the sun rises at 7 a.m. and sets at 5 p.m. That gives you a total of 10 hours of daylight to service your pools. And so if you're spending an hour at each pool, plus driving time in between the pools, you're going to maybe do 9 pools during that period if you spend an hour there each day. If you have 14 pools that day, that means that 5 of those pools are going to be pushed back to another service day. How do I know this? I've done this before, and I know the consequences of not setting a time limit and wanting to clean up the pools as best I can in that time. So let's say you start on Monday, you have 5 extra pools, you put on Tuesday. Again, you have 9 pools on Tuesday that you can finish, and you have 15 pools on Tuesday. That means that 9 more pools get pushed back to the next day. Already by day 3, you're already a day behind mathematically. So you really can't spend an hour at each pool. Unfortunately, the customer has to understand this. The most you can spend at each pool, and I've done this and I've calculated it, and I know this to be true, is 25 minutes. Now you can steal some time from one pool to another if you need to. So if you get to a pool and you spend 20 minutes there, at the next pool you can add 5 minutes to that pool and spend half an hour there. But mathematically, that's as much time as you can spend at a pool and then drive to your next stop. And to get through your day before the sun sets, realistically, you can't do any more than that. Now, of course, if you have other days during the week that are lighter, you can kind of cheat on some time earlier in the week, and then you can move pools to that day if you wanted to. Bottom line is that the customer should know that the primary task at hand is to get the surface debris and to get the skimmer operational so that the pool is actually circulating. At this time, you may turn off the automatic cleaner. If you have a suction side cleaner, just turn that off and shut it down. If you have a pressure side cleaner, also just turn that off for the week until you get back there the following week. It's not going to do much good, and it may just clog up the system. So that's primarily the first thing you want to do. Number 1, communicate clear expectations of what you're going to do during the cleanup process. And 2, start by getting the surface debris off the pool. Now, fortunately, if you have invested in a vacuum system, and I would say that the bottom feeder is great for about 80% of the cleanup you're going to use on your route. But there is that 20% time when you get some really heavy debris. Like this storm here, the last time this happened in my service area was in 2011. So that's almost like a 20-year event. I'm going to say 15-year event. But typically, it's about a 20-year event between major windstorms in my area. And certain areas, of course, differ. If you're in Fontana, California, you pretty much are going to need to have 2 vacuum systems all the time. You're going to have the bottom feeder, and then the second vacuum system that I would highly recommend would be the Riptide SL Surface Cart. It's a really great, powerful vacuum system. You'll find the bottom feeder is great for most of your pools, but to have the larger vacuum system handy if you need it is also great. I wouldn't limit myself to just one vacuum system. I think it's foolish to say that, okay, I have this vacuum system and that's all I'm going to need. Really, they're 2 totally different machines. The bottom feeder is a portable 12-pound vacuum system that has really good suction power. Of course, it has a really great ability to clean any pool, basically. But then you have those incidents like right now where you may need a more powerful vacuum system, and the Riptide does come in handy with the cart. So I wouldn't say that is something that you shouldn't look into investigating purchasing. Now with both of these, you have to have a budget of somewhere around $3,500, which you can do if you plan things correctly. I'm all for having the most equipment possible to make your life easier. I also have the Advantage PortaVac, and this is a great way to clean pools up once you're done with the leaf debris. If you wanted to vacuum it out without using the pool's filtration system, in some cases this will cause you even more work on top of that with the ash, and I'll address that a little bit later. But basically, you would want to have a vacuum system of some type to make getting the leaf debris off the pool very rapid. Now, a lot of old timers, and I get comments all the time that's like, I just use my leaf rake. There's no need to invest in a vacuum system. If you haven't used one before, you really don't know what you're missing. I've cleaned many pools myself with just the leaf rake on the bottom. It can be done. I'm not saying that it's not something that you can do, but if you're doing 15 pools and you're doing this times 5 days a week with a leaf rake on the bottom, getting large leaf debris, you're pretty much wearing yourself out. It's not pleasant. It does take a lot more time because once you are leaf raking the shallow end, all the debris is stirred up in the deep end. Then you let it settle down, then you leaf rake the deep end, go back to the shallow end. It's almost like you're spending way too much time, which you are, just getting the debris off the bottom because it keeps getting stirred up by the action of you removing the debris. So I would say that is a very primitive way of removing leaf debris from the bottom of a pool. And a vacuum system is something that you really should invest in, especially if you're in an area where wind and windstorms are going to cause a lot of debris to get into your service accounts. And I've been in business long enough to try all different methods of leaf cleanup. I even have used the leaf bagger with the garden hose. This is also a primitive way, in my opinion, of cleaning out a pool. You're also using some resources, which is water. Of course, it's going into the pool and filling it up, so you're not wasting it, but you do use water on a garden hose. These aren't bad devices. They do work effectively. It's really dependent on the customer's water pressure, but it does take more time because you have the garden hose that you're connecting. You're putting this device in there. It's really a slow-moving device, and it's not something that's designed really to go fast. And you're going to spend a lot of time using this particular device on the bottom of the pool. They're good. They're effective, but they're more for the homeowner in their backyard. I've also used battery-operated cleaners. The WaterTech has a battery-operated leaf vacuum, and BWT also has some models. But when you have debris of this magnitude, those are mainly just for cleaning small leaf debris off the bottom and not something for the windstorm. So I would discount using any of those devices at this point, and I would say that if you are doing pool service in a wind-prone area again, a vacuum system is something that should be essential. Now, I mentioned the ash. Now, the vacuum system with the right bag can get some of the ash off the bottom of the pool. I like the 57 micron bag with the bottom feeder. Riptide has a 75 micron bag that does fairly well with the ash on the bottom of the pool. And I don't think you would want to go any lower than that with the Riptide because it has a lot of thrust and the bag's going to get full of the fine ash really fast and it's going to be ineffective. So I wouldn't recommend using a 60 micron bag to vacuum out the ash. The reason why the bottom feeder's 57 micron bag works so well is it doesn't have as much thrust as a Riptide, and so the bag is not going to fill up. The water's not going to back up in there basically because of physics. Once the bag starts to get this fine dust in there, especially with the ash, water can't pass through as fast enough, causing the water to come out basically the bottom of the vacuum system. And that's why a really fine micron bag with a lot of thrust is not as effective. But the 75 micron bag with the Riptide is perfectly fine. You'll get some of the ash out of the pool. Now, hopefully you have suction cleaners on your pool route to pick up the rest of the dirt. But sometimes you don't want to overload the filter either, especially with a lot of ash that's in the pool. And this is where the Advantage PortaVac, and I have the hammered version, comes in. It's a really great device. It has a cartridge filter, a 100 square foot cartridge filter, but you're probably not going to use that for this particular cleanup. And in front of the PortaVac on top by the filter is a valve so you can vacuum the waste. And I recommend having the PortaVac and the waste mode, and then you would just use your manual vacuum head with the hose and you'll vacuum out the pool. All the ash will be vacuumed out with a waste line somewhere. You can also use a portable pump. You can build one of your own and just have the portable pump with a discharge on top and then the pool hose in front, and you can vacuum out a pool that way because you're going to add a lot of dirt to the pool filter in a lot of cases if you don't do this. And sometimes it's going to be a problem for you because you're cleaning up these pools, trying to get them in shape, and then you're going to have to stop and clean filters also, which adds to your time. The whole thing about the wind cleanup is the amount of time that you have to utilize to clean the pools up, and wasting time cleaning pool filters is something you want to avoid. Again, having all these tools is really crucial in my opinion. So one of the aspects of having a vacuum system like, let's say, the Riptide and the PortaVac and you have them both in the back of your truck, you're going to need something called the T-bar mount, which Advantage manufactures sells as well. And this is a mount that goes into your receiver that has two more receivers. You can connect two different devices on each side. You could take the PortaVac 2.0 and you could take the Riptide on each side of it. But of course, if you don't need that, if you just have the PortaVac 2.0 and the bottom feeder, then you wouldn't need the T-bar mount. It's just however you want to equip your business. And I would say that the portable filter is a great tool to have, especially with all the ash that's falling in my area. And it's a great tool to help clean up the pools without having to clean the pool filter, overloading it, and causing yourself more work than you actually need at this point. So let me back up a little bit here and talk about the steps. Step 1, have the correct expectations with the customer. Step 2, spend 25 minutes at the pool skimming the pool surface. If you have time to do some of the bottom of the pool, you're welcome to do that as well. But leaving the bottom for the following week is perfectly acceptable. Make sure you have enough chlorine in the pool because the leaf debris, even if the water is cold, will of course use up some of the chlorine in the pool itself. So make sure that the pool is actually balanced or has extra chlorine in it. In some regards, that's probably the best way to ensure you're not going to have algae, which in most cases, at least in my area, the windstorms tend to hit anywhere from October all the way through February, which is the colder time, and the water is much colder, and so the chemicals seem to hold really well, and it's not a major issue. So clean the surface, vacuum the bottom out. This may be the second week. And if there is a suction side cleaner, make sure that's operating. That way it's going to get some of that dirt out. If you don't want the cleaner to pick up the dirt, let's say there's a lot of ash on the bottom and you really don't want it to go into the filter, you don't want that to go into the filter, make sure you turn off the suction side cleaner. And then the third week is the week you're going to vacuum all of that dirt out using your portable pump or a portable filtration system. And that way it's not all going into the filter and you're not cleaning the filter as well as cleaning all these pools on your route. So at the beginning I mentioned having the service agreement, and having this agreement will inspire your customers in some circumstances, in some cases if they have the time, to actually help you with step 1, which is removing the surface debris. I can't tell you how many times let's say I'm starting on a Monday, by the time I get to my Wednesday and Thursday pools, most of the customers, believe it or not, if they have the equipment, and this is something that you want to make sure that you really stock up the customers with equipment so they can clean the pool, just get one of those cheap homeowner poles at your supplier. It's that blue aluminum pole with the white locking mechanism that won't really work for pool service because they lock up and they're ineffective and the pole is going to bend under like huge debris. And get them a decent leaf rake. I wouldn't recommend getting a cheap $10 leaf rake. I usually get the customer something in a $20 range or $30 range. And then I bill the customer when I notice I don't have this for a pool pole and a leaf rake. And I leave it at the pool for them. And I leave it somewhere obvious so they can find it, of course, by the equipment. And they know that they're going to have this there because even without a wind event, they may have a party. A dead animal may fall into the pool, like a gopher, or I was going to say groundhog, but I guess they're not the same. But a gopher falls in there and basically they can scoop it out. But having a leaf rake in the pool there, knowing that your service agreement states that it could be a 2 or 3 week cleanup because you're going to be focused on the surface first, it inspires them to get out there and skim the surface of the pool. So I've had many times where the entire surface of the pool is skimmed. I've had a few instances where the customer actually skimmed the bottom of the pool, and then I'm able to vacuum out the pool no problem with my regular manual vacuum head and hose because they've already done step 1 and 2 for me. So really, if you set the clear expectation that you're not going to spend an hour there cleaning the top and bottom and vacuuming the pool and getting the pool back to the way it looked before the windstorm, they're going to take initiative. But if they don't know this, if you don't have a service agreement or some other way of letting the customer know your win policy, don't expect them to really do anything because they don't really know they have to be proactive and do anything to get their pool back in order. So the psychology of it is pretty simple. If they don't know what your steps are and they expect you to clean the pool entirely during your service day, when the pool looks like a total disaster, you can like walk across the pool, there's so much debris on there, then how do you expect them to help you out? So a lot of pool pros are frustrated. They're like, the customer didn't lift a finger. I got there and the pool looked just like it did earlier in the week. Well, you didn't let them know that they could do anything, basically. So that's kind of what you're going to have to do to make your job easier. And once the customers know this, your life is a lot easier as well. I've had customers clean the entire pool for me. I get there, they've even vacuumed the pool. So there is that possibility if you implant that little seed in their brain that, hey, I got to do something here because this is not a normal pool cleaning type thing. It's like if you had a party at your house with 100 guests, and let's say you have a house cleaning service that comes every week to clean your house. Well, you wouldn't expect them to do the regular cleaning and clean up a party with 100 people in there with bottles and cups and everything all messed up as a regular cleaning. That's just not something that you would expect. And the same goes for a pool that's been hit by a major windstorm. The customer may expect you to do that because you have not set clear guidelines, and that's a key to making this work. Another thing is also to make sure the customer knows that if there's no power to the pool, if there's a problem getting to the pool because the tree's down or the area is an evacuation zone, you can't get to the pool. There's just no way to do it. In 2011, I'm driving around Pasadena after this windstorm. Many streets were blocked by the police. Once in a while, an officer would let me through, but most of the time they would just turn me around and I would just go back down the street because it was not accessible. So that's something that you have to make clear to the customer as well, that you're not going to be arrested for going to an area that's closed off just to clean their pool, and that's an unrealistic expectation. Really, spending 25 minutes there is not unrealistic, and you can sometimes clean the entire pool in that time period with the right equipment. For example, if you skim the pool surface and you're done in 8 or 10 minutes and you have the bottom feeder to use on the bottom of the pool, you can actually vacuum that pool within 5 or 6 minutes completely. So right there, you're under 25 minutes vacuuming the pool bottom, skimming the top. But if you don't have the right equipment, of course, and you're using a leaf rake for everything, it's really going to be one of those things where the pool's not going to look great and you can't get the automatic cleaner going at the end and leave, because you're going to actually take 2 weeks off of the schedule here if you have the right equipment. So you can skim the surface, in some cases in 10 minutes, vacuum the bottom of the pool with something like the bottom feeder to get the large leaf debris, and then turn on the suction cleaner and let that get all the dirt out of the pool, if there's not a lot of ash in the pool, that is. And then basically you've eliminated all those steps or those extra weeks because you have the right equipment. So being equipped with the right equipment is really crucial. And another great thing about having the right equipment is that you can actually sleep pretty good at night knowing that, yes, the pools have been hit by the winds. They're pretty destroyed at this point, but I really don't have to worry about it because I have the bottom feeder or I have a riptide, and I'm going to clean the pool no problem the next week. But if you don't have that equipment, I don't think you're going to sleep quite as easily as if you did have the equipment. Or if you're in an area that gets a lot of dust storms, having the PortaVac 2.0, you can rest easy knowing that I don't have to worry about cleaning customers' filters because I have the PortaVac and I can go out there and vacuum all the fine dirt and dust out of the bottom of the pool. Again, having the right equipment is more than just getting through the day fast. It's also having the right mental attitude and actually being able to rest and sleep better and not be stressed. It takes a lot of stress off you. It takes a lot of worry off your mind, knowing that you can clean these pools in a pretty good amount of time with the right equipment. For other podcasts, you can find those on my website, swimmingpoollearning.com. Go ahead and click the banner on top. There's a podcast icon there that'll bring you down a drop-down menu of over 1,500 podcasts there for you. And if you are looking into my coaching program, you can learn more on my website or at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.